And thank you very much for getting me to come to speak to you this evening. So I guess for a lot of you, astrology just means reading your sun sign in the newspapers, which is a bit of a shame, really, because it's a really deep and complex subject. And because of that, I'll only be able to cover the sun signs this evening, but hopefully, you'll learn a lot from that. Are there any astrologers in the audience? No, so nobody knows anything about charts or anything like that? No, okay. Well, don't worry, because hopefully I've made it pretty self-explanatory. So, where did it all begin? So, here we go back a very long way. And the first written records of astrology go back to the Babylonian Empire in the 19th century BCE. And the ancients observed that there was a definite correlation between the movements of the planets and what was going on Earth. It was like as above, so below. And in those days, they would predict things like war and famine, and that's how they used astrology. And then it spread to the Greeks in the 4th century BCE, and Plato and Aristotle made it a respected science. Then it spread to the Romans and the Arabs, and then finally the rest of the world. Now, if you go back, the average person wouldn't have a chart reading for themselves. It would only be the king or queen that would have their court astrologer that would predict for them. And in those days, it was incredibly fatalistic. Whatever the astrologer predicted, they truly believed that, and it tended to come true. I mean, most famously, Nostradamus predicted Henry II of France's death, and it was all accepted that this would happen, and in the way that he predicted, and so be it. Now, nowadays, we tend, on the whole, to use astrology in a different way. We're much more aware of personal growth and development and the process of individuation, understanding ourselves and our personalities, especially since the discovery of the 3 outer planets. Now, I don't know the mechanism of how astrology works, only that I believe it's certainly the best map of the psyche that we've got. I'm a psychological astrologer, which means I would look at the birth chart, and it gives me a lot of information about the person. Now, I don't think that astrology can predict exactly what's going to happen. But what we can do is we can look at previous cycles and notice that when we have a particular configuration of planets called transits, then certain types of things tend to happen to do with the nature of the planet. So let me show you what an astrological chart looks like. So if somebody was to come and see me, this is what I would draw up for them, which is the moment of their birth. And this is the chart of this evening. And you can see that if we look at the chart, it probably means nothing to you, but the dark line that goes horizontally through the middle is called the ascendant. And if you were to look out the window, this is the horizon line. Have anybody heard of people say, well, I'm a Gemini, but I've got Sagittarius rising, or a Sagittarius ascendant? That's what they're referring to, the sign that's coming up over the horizon at that particular moment that they were born. And I do believe that every moment in time is reflected in the heavens. And you can do a chart for a person, or a place, or an event like this, or a phone call, anything. And as you can see, the chart is divided up into 12 segments going round the edge here. And these are the signs of the zodiac that go round anti-clockwise. And then we have what's called the 12 houses, and that's the ring on the outside. And for me, it's a bit like a Shakespearean play, in that the planets are like the actors, the signs are the roles they play, and the houses are the scenes or stage sets where it's all played out. Now, there's lots of lines between the planets, aren't there? And these are like energy flows. And this means an awful lot to astrologers. The red aspects are the more challenging ones, the 90 degrees, the 180 degrees, where there's a lot of tension. And then the blue lines are the 120 degrees, the 60 degrees, and these are much more harmonious. And the green dotted lines are a bit like the red aspects, but they're a bit more subtle, if you like. Now, if you wonder what a sun sign is, it's the position of the sun, here's the sun here, in whatever sign at that time that you were born. So everybody probably knows what their sun sign is, or some people say star sign. Now, to make things more simple, what I'm going to do is talk about the elements. And I'm going to focus on these because there are many systems that divide people up into their basic constitutions. And there are 4 standard ones. So fire is opposite to earth, air is opposite to water, and we're a mixture of all these elements, and they all represent different aspects. And we're always striving for wholeness, so it could be that we have a lot of fire, or it could be that we lack water, something like that. And this all has a huge influence on our personalities. And here are the sun signs and the elements that they belong to. So here we have, in fire, we've got Aries the ram, we've got Leo the lion, and Sagittarius the centaur. Then opposite, we've got Taurus the bull, we've got Virgo the virgin, and Capricorn the goat. And then with the air signs, we've got Gemini the twins, we've got Libra the scales, and Aquarius the water bearer. And then opposite to them, we have the water signs. So we've got Cancer the crab, Scorpio the scorpion, and Pisces the fish. So let's have a look at these elements in more detail. So fire. Now, fire is masculine in nature. It can't be contained, can it? It starts the whole zodiac with Aries. It's initiatory, enthusiastic, romantic. They tend to see symbol and sign in everything. It's like life to them is a sea of possibilities. They're highly intuitive and see so much potential in everything. They do tend to exaggerate. If you know any fire signs, it's like if they've been to see a film, it's not just a good film, it's the best film they've ever seen. Or if you say, oh, I'm going to drive to London, how long is it going to take? Oh, you can do that in an hour. You know, it's like they see things in a bigger way than the rest of us. So you can imagine they get very bored with doing things like, routine housework or anything that's restricting. They really don't like mundane tasks like doing tax returns, paperwork, anything that restricts them like red tape or traffic laws. They don't tend to plan or prepare before they go out. They're the types that just rush out the door and have forgotten everything. It's almost like that fiery spirit trapped in an earthy body. They tend to want youth and freedom of movement, and they hate it when their bodies let them down through illness or age. They absolutely hate things like unwanted hair, wrinkles, warts, cellulite. Interesting, in a way, that the Holy Spirit is represented by a flame, isn't it? So that's the element of fire. And even though you might be one of these signs, Aries, Leo, or Sagittarius, and you don't relate to that, it could be because you've got, say, a lot of earth in your chart. And this is what an astrologer would be able to understand. So let's have a look at them more individually. And I'm sure if there's any Aries in the audience, or maybe you've got Aries friends or family, you'll be able to see if you can relate to this. So Aries is cardinal fire, masculine in nature, and is ruled by Mars, the god of war. And the part of the body which Aries rules is the head. Now, so if you've got lots of planets in Aries, you might be able to relate to what I'm saying as well. So it's the first sign of the zodiac and associated with spring, which is all about birth and new beginnings, isn't it? And if you think about it, birth can be bloody and a fight for life. They're combative in nature and love to be a hero. And the myth of Jason and the Argonauts, you know, he's got that mission to get the golden fleece. So he goes off, doesn't he? He gathers all these people around him to help him. So Aries tend to, you know, if they've got a project they want to do, they think, oh yes, okay, I'm going to get on this. They're quite autonomous in their vision, but they get people to help them. And if you think of the fact it rules the head and the expression of headstrong, and they often do suffer from things like head injuries or headaches. So Aries is ruled by Mars, god of war, so they do love a contest and are very competitive. They seek to lead rather than to follow and tend to be single-minded and autonomous in what they do. And what happens, though, is when they start on a project, they can abandon it if it gets a bit too boring or routine. So they have the spirit of the pioneer, and they love a challenge, and they have a lot of courage and initiative. They get impatient and can get extremely angry in the face of frustration. So let's look at some famous Aries people. Interestingly enough, Aries women, or people with, say, Aries ascendant, they often have broad shoulders. I've noticed this, some trait that they've got. So let's have a look at the second fire sign, Leo. So if you are Leo or have Leo family members or friends, Leo is very much in touch with the playful creativity of the inner child. Now there, if you think about Leo, it's ruled by the sun, and the sun is the centre of the solar system. All the other planets satellite around the sun. So it's almost like they need that level of attention, and when they do, they're very loving and benevolent and generous. They're regal and proud, just like their symbol, the lion. And Leos often have a feeling of a unique destiny. They have great vision, but they can exhibit great pride and stubborn willfulness, because this is fixed fire, this sign. And the part of the body which Leo rules is the heart. So, you know, very loving in nature. And Leo's landscape is the glorious and dramatic film set. Some Leos can be very self-centered, and being fixed, they're usually very devoted to any person or thing that they deeply love. So let's have a look at some famous Leo celebrities. And they're bound to have, you know, some of these traits in them. So the last of the fire signs is Sagittarius. This is a mutable fire sign, again masculine nature, and the planet which rules Sagittarius is Jupiter, king of the gods. And the part of the body which Sagittarius rules is the thighs. So Sagittarius are forever youthful, adventurous, and eternally hopeful. They're on a quest for greater understanding, and they need to expand their minds, and it's vital for them to have meaning in their lives. They often have a strong religious impulse, and they often live their life by a belief system, a particular belief system. They're good at seeing the bigger picture, but they're not so good at seeing details. So when the centaur fires his arrow, he's more interested in the journey than the final destination. It's like they get flashes of intuition and gallop off to seek the elusive truth. However, once their goal is reached, the excitement wanes, then they need a new and fascinating possibility. They get impatient with mundane limits and time, and they love their freedom, and they do resent too much practical and domestic responsibility. So here are some famous Sagittarians. Now, those are the fire signs. So just to show you the chart of a famous fire sign, here is the chart of Winston Churchill. Now, he's very typically fire, actually, because he's got his sun down here in Sagittarius, but he's also got his moon in Leo. And so he would have really hated all the kind of the mundane side of things. He was much more of a visionary and would get very impatient with things. So now let's look at Earth. So Earth is opposite to fire. Earth represents the mundane world. It can be contained. You can put Earth in a bucket, can't you? Earth is real, solid, reliable, factual, and unlike fire, happy in the present. Earth is concerned with what we can feel, touch, see, smell, taste. That's their reality. Earth fears the unknown. It discerns what's useful and practical and builds security and safety. It's fond of all what the material world can bring: money, sensual pleasure, status. And unlike fire, they're more happy in their bodies. They're more, realistic about them. They're very good at taking responsibility. They're loyal and committed and feel it's important to do their duty. They're good at preparation. They're the ones that, have their tick list before they go out the door. It's certainly more important to them than wild and romantic idealism. They're good at tasks that require discipline, hard work, diligence, patience, and care. So here we have Taurus the bull, Virgo the virgin, and Capricorn the goat. And I want to look at those in more detail. So let's look at Taurus. So any Taurians in the audience? This is fixed Earth, feminine in nature, and is ruled by Venus, the goddess of love. And the part of the body which Taurus rules is the neck or throat. And often Taurians are quite good at singing. Now think of the bull, peacefully grazing in the field, chewing the grass. But if a bee comes along and stings them on their butt, you'll see their terrifying power. Nature, if you think about it, develops at a very slow pace. And have you ever stood over a Taurus and got them to hurry up? That's when you meet the stubbornness of Taurus. That's when they dig their heels in. So, they love sensuality and physical comforts. They tend to, in appearance, they tend to be quite stocky, the farmer types, or very Venusian and beautiful. They often take a long time to choose their life path and prefer to get practical experience and build something permanent rather than make premature decisions which have to be undone. Taurus don't let go easily, even if they're unhappy with something, because they get attached to habitual routines and objects and fight against change, even positive change, simply because it's new. And they can create great forms of beauty in this world. The divine on earth, if you like. And as Taurus rules the neck, as I said, they're often very good at singing, or they might have throat problems, things like that. So here are a few Taurian celebrities that you might know. Indeed. Okay, so the second of the earth signs is Virgo, which is mutable earth, feminine again in nature, and the planet which rules Virgo is Mercury, who is the messenger of the gods. And the part of the body which Virgo rules is the small intestines. It's almost like, you know, that sort of the nitty-gritty digestive side of life. Now, the Virgin is not a symbol in the sexual sense. It actually means unmarried or self-possessed. She was self-sufficient, mistress of herself. She belonged to no one, therefore acted from her own free will. Now, Virgos like to be industrious and they like to order their world. They like to gain knowledge and skills and are often interested in crafts that involve fine detail. It's the sign of the craftsman or craftswoman. And they tend to like all things that are natural and maybe alternative medicine, that kind of thing. They can get too focused on the detail to look up to see the bigger picture. However, their work is usually very precise and meticulous. You know, you hear about that Virgo perfectionism. They can be critical of others, but most of all they're critical of themselves, and being practical in nature, they're often found in the service industries. So here are a few celebrity Virgos. And I'm sure you've all recognised some of those meticulous traits that they would have had. So, the last of the earth signs is Capricorn. It's only Capricorns, or if you know any Capricorns, it's cardinal earth, feminine in nature. It's mutable air. Mutable means that they're very adaptable and they can fit in very well to different situations. And and their planet which rules Gemini is Mercury, messenger of the gods. And the parts of the body which Gemini rules are the lungs and the hands. So communication is fundamental to Gemini. Mercury, messenger of the gods. It's like they need to be in communication and to be information gatherers. There's a duality to their sign which can often give them the feeling of being several different people at once. Gemini is restless, inquisitive, and reluctant to be pigeonholed. They get stimulated by the new and interesting things. They resent being trapped by obligations and limitations which curtail the freedom to explore and exchange their ideas. They are very observant, and their intellect craves variety. They're changeable as quicksilver, fascinated for a little while with just about everything, but quick to become bored and move on. You know that saying, jack of all trade, master of none? It's because the world is too large and there's too much to know and too much to talk about and to go into any depth about it. So that would be somebody with a lot of Gemini in their chart. So here's some famous Geminis. Okay, so the second of the air signs is Libra. Any Librans? It's cardinal air. The cardinal signs have a lot of get up and go about them. They're movers and the shakers. And the planet which rules Libra is Venus again, goddess of love. And the parts of the body which Libra rules are the kidneys and the lumbar region of the body. It's the only inanimate object in the whole pantheon of the signs of the zodiac, and symbolises a detached perspective. And if you think about it, they like a balanced point of view, and it's the scales of justice at the law courts. You see them there, that's the Libran scales. Interesting enough, if you've ever thought about why you have 12 jurors in a court, it's because they represent the 12 signs of the zodiac in ancient times. So the concept of fairness is the creation of the human mind. Cheaters don't sit in committee to discuss whether they're going to rush out and kill an antelope or something like that. No, they discuss things and they don't react. Like its ruler Venus, harmony and refinement matter greatly to Libra, and they express themselves in a cool, courteous and refined way. They love beauty, whether it be in ideas, in people, objects, dress, or in small acts of courtesy. They're the diplomats and the peacemakers of the zodiac. They like to harmonise and please people rather than antagonise, which has earned the Libran the reputation of being indecisive. However, a Libran knows their own mind, and the goddess Athena also was a warrior as well as a strategist. And if you think about two famous female politicians who are Librans, Margaret Thatcher and Theresa May are both Librans. And you often find them in politics. So here's some famous Librans. So the last of the air signs is Aquarius, which is fixed air, masculine in nature, and is ruled by the maverick of the solar system, the planet Uranus. And the part of the body which Aquarius rules are the ankles. So that magical substance that the water bearer is pouring isn't water. It's almost like the power of inspired knowledge which Aquarius is pouring forth. Now, Aquarians strive towards an orderly system, whether it be social, political, cosmic, in which every individual has its role to play. They have a deeply inquiring mind and interact in a fair, decent and civilized way. They idealize humanity and are highly critical of individuals, including themselves. They're often found in spheres such as psychology, scientific research and political and social reforms. And they usually make an effort to be tolerant of differing viewpoints, lifestyles and personal beliefs. You know, if you think of the age of Aquarius, it's quite kind of, very tolerant. And Uranus, their ruler, has often gives them a quirky quality about them. They're great humanitarians because they can rise above their emotions, and they may rebel against traditional values out of a sense of a greater truth. So let's have a look at some famous Aquarians. And just to look at the chart of an air sign person. Yep, there's Donald Trump. Here he is with his sun up here in the sign of Gemini. And he's got a lot of air in his chart because he's got this little collection in Gemini, and he's got this little collection of planets in
Libra.
Looking around the corner. And boy, does he love to communicate, forever tweeting away. So that's, the chart of Donald Trump. Now, let's have a look at the water signs. Water is feminine in nature. So here we have Cancer the crab, Scorpio the and Pisces the fish. And all three symbols for the water signs are very primitive, cold-blooded creatures. In nature, they have their antennae out, and they have strong gut reactions to things. They're at home with the non-rational, unexplainable, the magical. And what's terribly intimate and subjective is so important. So the language of the heart is not translatable to the water signs, and they can find it quite difficult to express themselves verbally. They often don't think conceptually, but imagine things in pictures. And the most important thing to the water signs is feeling. They fear aloneness and isolation, and others are the most important things in their life. They're sensitive and perceptive and profound. Their moods are very changeable. They usually respond instantly to emotional situations, and their judgments do not take place in their heads, but in their gut. You know, when for a water sign, when, say, they get bad news or something like that, they instantly react. They often cry very easily, but it comes from a very emotional place, where the air signs tend to be much more logical and about things like that. Okay, so let's have a look at them individually. For any Cancers in the audience, or maybe you have Cancer relatives. So Cancer is a cardinal sign, feminine, and it's ruled by the moon, and the part of the body which Cancer rules are the breasts. Now, Cancer rules home and family, and the crab doesn't live completely in the sea. It needs the protectiveness and security of the land. And like the fluctuations of the moon, their moods are very changeable, like the phases of the moon. They're pretty realistic about life and protect themselves with surprising toughness and shrewdness. They're deeply fearful of loneliness and rejection, and they often have a preoccupation with security, whether provided by a close family, a reliable job, or an indispensable role in a social or professional group. They're often quite shy and reluctant to reveal thoughts and emotions which could incur criticism or rejection even, so they may display that famous hard outer shell to the world, especially Cancerian men, because, you know, it's a very feminine sign, and so they're often have to portray the sort of toughness, but inside they're very, very sensitive. They're highly intuitive and most at home with non-verbal forms of communication, with an almost psychic ability to empathise with others. So let's have a look at some famous Cancerians. So let's look at the second water sign, which is Scorpio, and it's fixed water. And the planet which rules Scorpio is Pluto, the dark lord of the underworld. And the part of the body which Scorpio rules are the sex organs. Now, this is a very deep and complex sign and is often very misunderstood and maligned. They possess a deep intensity of feeling. So therefore, when they love, they really love, they have a lot of passion, need, hatred and anger. It's felt so very deeply. And when human beings feel so intensely, it's not easy for them to forgive. They need intense emotional involvement, but fear very much being controlled by others. They need, so Scorpion, if you think about it, it's the only creature, if you corner it, would rather sting itself to death than relinquish. It prefers death, like, it would rather die than submit to something. It's This endurance and indestructibility of the spirit can survive great sorrow and hardship. They have incredible willpower and determination. They have the taste for the dramatic, even if this means provoking a crisis, and they're capable of extreme possessiveness. Scorpio needs a great deal of emotional closeness with loved ones and is often inadvertently hurt. They're very aware of others' unspoken motives or manipulations. You know, like in an office, they would be very aware of office politics, the unspoken, the nuances between people. They would know where the rivalry was and the jealousies. But they have profound compassion for human suffering and have penetrating insights. And here are a few celebrity Scorpions. So the last of the water signs is, and the last sign of the zodiac is Pisces. It's mutable water, feminine in nature, and is ruled by the planet Neptune, who is god of the sea. And the part of the body which Pisces rules are the feet. Now, Pisces represents that magical kingdom at the bottom of the sea. And the sea represents the unconscious, the collective unconscious. Pisces represents that deep longing in all of us to return back to the source. You know, that time before birth, when there's no hardship, no sorrow, no brutality. It's just being at one. And some Pisces are even ambivalent about being here. And they're often acutely aware of the beauty of life, nature, and the depth of the human soul. They have profound compassion for all life and often deep religious feeling. Now, Pisces don't tend to be good on boundaries. And they're familiar with every shade of human emotion, and they find it difficult to defend their own ground or protect themselves from exploitation. Because, Neptune rules the numinous, the spiritual. It has no limits, it has no boundaries. So that longing to go home may express itself as a quest for oblivion. And that's why you hear about the association between Pisces and addiction, like alcohol or drugs, or even to heal others of their despair. Their connection to the numinous is often expressed through art or music. And here's some famous Pisceans. So you can imagine what happens when an air sign and a water sign get together, because they're opposites and very, very attracted to each other. And this is the kind of scenario that you can get. So here on the left we have Mrs. Wardry. I'm so upset. I'm sure the girls in the office don't like me. Mr. Airy, I think you're being quite irrational. Anyway, have you heard about our new scientific breakthrough? So that gives you an idea of the kind of thing that goes on, the mismatch, but the curiosity. That's the thing about opposites, is there's such curiosity because it's so unfamiliar. So you get an incredible attraction at first, but then after a few years it becomes incredibly irritating. So here is the chart of a famous water sign. Princess Diana, here she is with her sun in the watery sign of Cancer. And that's where you kind of get that incredible compassion that she had, and that sort of softness. So that brings me to the end of my talk on the signs of the zodiac. If anybody is curious and they would like a chart reading, please do come and take one of my cards, which are up there. And I will go in depth into your own personal chart and talk about the upcoming events in the coming year. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that's given you some insight, a brief insight into astrology.
I'll do a shout. If anybody has any questions, please ask Helen.
Are there two signs that should not be together?
In astrology books, they tend to say, oh, you know, you're so much better off with the sign in your own element. But I don't think, I'm also a couple counsellor, and I personally believe that relationships are more about personal growth and development than anything else, because of what you meet, the difficulties that you meet in your partner makes you grow, and I think that's what it's all about. So we often, more often than not, in marriages, you'll end up marrying the sign opposite to yours. That's the most common, or in a square aspect, which is I don't know. Say you're a Cancer, often would get together with a Capricorn, or an Aries, or a Libra. So it's almost like you need that frisson. You know, you need that bit of, you know. Otherwise, there's not really any growth. There's not really any personal growth if everything is just, you know, bland. Of course, there are people that you know, they have complete harmony. But I don't know. As a couple counsellor, I do wonder about people that say they never row and they've never had, you know, they never have any difficulty with their partner. I do wonder about that.
Water and fire is okay, is it?
Water and fire, yeah. Which signs in particular?
Pisces and Leo.
Ah, okay.
About 40 years later or more.
It just does what you're told.
As long as water doesn't put out fire, or fire frazzle water into steam.
Does it make any difference astrologically that Pluto is no longer a planet?
No. And I did quite a lot of work, and what was so fascinating with the transits of the planets, because it has such a, if you like, influence on world affairs. So I do look at world affairs quite a lot, and when they sent the probe out to Pluto, that was from the first discovery of Pluto in 1930. When one of the outer planets comes into when we discover it, you just have to look to see what's going on in the world. It's almost like our consciousness has become open to the meaning of it. So when Uranus was discovered in 1778, this was a time of revolution. We just had the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the Industrial Revolution. It's all about overthrowing the old for the new. And so people that have got Uranus strongly placed in their chart tend to be the Promethean spirits. You know, they tend to be the ones that bring in the new. They suffer for it, as Prometheus did. Then when Neptune was discovered, we had the whole, in the mid-1800s, film, photography, spirit photography, all this sort of, you know, filming ectoplasm and all that, and seances, all that came to the fore. And then when Pluto was discovered in 1930, he sort of rules, if you like, power and control. And the biggest thing that was going on was the rise of the Third Reich, that wanted complete power and control, more favourably, if you like. It was also the birth of depth psychology. And if you think about Pluto ruling the underworld, and the underworld being a metaphor for our unconscious, But when they sent the probe out, and they discovered this whole kind of mini system, didn't they? It's got moons, and they're able to photograph it. That's when there was a significant transit to Pluto from the time that it was discovered. So it's just fascinating the way it's almost like we are all connected. It's like a big system. We're all connected, as above, so below. And I've been studying it for. I think I was born an astrologer, but I've been studying it for 30 odd years, and I can just see it works. And that's why it's still alive and well today. And yes, so in terms of, I thought it was very interesting when it was demoted to a minor planet, because you don't do that to something so powerful as Pluto. It's almost like the dark feminine rises up then, because that's what she represents. These are huge archetypal forces that you'd be surprised how much power they have in our psyche. It's just incredible. So, any other questions?
You were saying about the Pluto, all the signs seem to be connected with planets, don't they?
Yes, they all have a ruler.
What was that? Scorpio is Pluto, isn't it?
Yes.
So what happened before Pluto was discovered?
Mars ruled Scorpio. Yeah.
What
Mars.
was the change then?
Well, there was a shift, you see. There's always a shift in our consciousness when the outer planets were discovered. And it's the same with changing over from, you've heard of ages, haven't you? So we've been in the age of Pisces for the last 2,000 years. And Pisces is very much to do with like a fascination with the afterlife, and the two main religions, Christianity, which is symbolized by the fish, Pisces the fish, and Islam, of course. And there's this fascination with the afterlife. Whereas the age of Aquarius that we're going into it rules technology, ruled by Uranus, and it's very much to do with it's neither male or female, and you'll see androgyny becoming more and more common. So yeah, and each age has its own gods. So Christianity and Islam I believe will die away. The same as with the ages, they go backwards. So before the age of Pisces was the age of Aries, which was very much to do with the Romans and the Roman gods. And if you think how quickly it takes a few hundred years to change over, but if you think how quickly the whole pantheon of the Greek and Roman gods disappeared, Christianity and Islam came to the fore for these 2,000 years. So each age has its own gods, and the gods of the Aquarian age are technology. And if you think about that, it's coming to the fore, isn't it? You can just see it. You can see it. It's to do with the mind and thinking and rationality and yeah. It's going to be very different over the next 2,000 years. Very, very different. And we're just at the cusp. And when you're on the cusp of one age dying and a new age beginning, there's also a collective anxiety around, and you can sense it, can't you? It's like there's not sure, because we're leaving one age behind and going into a new age, and it's happening very rapidly, more rapidly, I think, because of technology than ever before. But yeah, it's completely in keeping with the age of Aquarius. Okay. Any others, or are we done?
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.